Hey there, everyone. How's it going? Jumping on the recording just to talk about some new updates that have come to my attention. I woke up this morning and I saw some things on my X feed regarding Final Fantasy VII, the entire trilogy, and most importantly, Part Three. Now we know that Remake has been released on the Switch too, and it's received a great people have been talking about how great it is and how well it's performing. And honestly, I've mentioned this on previous streams. It's as if it's been released for the first time. Honestly, that's how well it's been accepted. And I think we're going to be getting some sales figures in the next few days, and we're going to see that we're going to getting some data from that. So, but apart from that, there was an event yesterday in New York for the release of Final Fantasy VII Remake and on the Switch and the Xbox. And there was some interviews because Naoki Hamaguchi was there, the director of, well, not Remake. I think Tetsuya Nomura was the director of Remake, but Hamaguchi has now taken over as the director of the whole project. And I saw it on Genki, who, by the way, if you don't follow Genki and you're into Final Fantasy or anything from Japan, Genki's a great source of information. So yeah, he's been giving out these. He's been sort of posting this information from interviews that Hamaguchi gave to GameSpot and Polygon and all of that. So I thought to myself, it'd be interesting to cover this. It'd be interesting to do a video where I read these interviews and see what they have to say. So yeah, let's start. I think the first one we should read would be the one from GameSpot. So I think the biggest take here would be Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3's title has been decided. Now that's huge. That's huge because we already know that tells us that they've already made up their mind about what the game's title is going to be. They know it. Like it's put in a it's put in a bracket. It's stamped. All right, let's go ahead and read this. Final Fantasy VII Remake Trilogy game director Naoki Hamaguchi confirmed that the studio has finally settled on a subtitle for Part 3. Interesting. The remake in Final Fantasy VII Remake refers to much more than just the technical aspects of the original 1997 game being remade. The remaking of Fate is a core concept of the title that adds additional layers to its story. Remake sequel, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, continues that trend by exploring a world reborn by the machinations of the game's antagonist Sephiroth. I don't know if I would say it. Anyway. As such, it stands to reason that the final game in the trilogy will use a similar naming convention that ties into the reimagining's meta-narrative. And according to that, games director Naoki Hamaguchi, the third and final installment's title has been decided by the trilogy's creative director, Tetsuya Nomura. I remember an interview I did at Paris Games Week. Paris Games Week was late October, beginning of November, about how he'd narrowed it down to two names, says Hamaguchi. It was up to Mr. Nomura to decide which it is. Oh, Nomura makes the decision. And yes, after returning from Paris Games Week, he did choose one, so I can say the title has been locked. So they've had that title locked for the last at least 2 months or so. Okay, so that makes me think that since they've decided on the title and they've got that down, the next step is to announce that title to the rest of the world. And I mean, I wonder what's holding them back. They must have a trailer available somewhere. Hamaguchi is in New York to promote the release of Final. I think the only thing that was keeping them from doing that was the release of Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate on the Nintendo Switch 2. That was literally the only thing holding them back. So now, I imagine they might give it a couple of weeks, and we might hear something about Part 3. Like, maybe it's like, okay, so we heard you like Final Fantasy VII Remake. Here's some more Final Fantasy VII. Giving us the opportunity to speak with him about the franchise, regarding the game's performance on the device, which has been received positively by even the most diehard of pixel peepers. Hamaguchi says that while it has it was relatively smooth getting the game running on the hardware. The team spent a lot of time trying to achieve a stable frame rate. Yeah, because I imagine taking all that from like the huge screens, like the PC screens or the big living room TVs, the the huge LCD screens and all that, and putting them on a handheld device. That must have been the biggest challenge, right? And we're talking about Remake. Rebirth has twice the amount of data, like with all the mini games and all that. That must be incredibly difficult, and it'll be even harder to do with Rebirth. The director also notes that it is also a challenge the team is dealing with on the Switch 2 port of Rebirth. I just said that, you know. But Hamaguchi confirms the studio has managed to get the sequel up and running on the device. While we have gotten Rebirth to function on the Switch 2, we still need to make sure that frame rates are stable. Our engineers are trying to fine-tune that and make sure we're optimizing properly, says Hamaguchi. Yeah, in all the reviews I've seen, like IGN and all that, they're saying that the frame rates of the remake, while they're only at 30, they can't go up to 60, they are stable at 30. They are solid 30. I don't know who that, like, I don't know if that really matters. Like, to me personally, that doesn't really matter, but yeah, they're saying it looks visually stunning. That's what everyone says. The game looks stunning. The first two parts of the trilogy were built using Unreal Engine 4, which has since been surpassed by the release of Unreal Engine 5 in 2021. While Hamaguchi previously stated the team had been considering transferring development of the final title over to the more modern engine, he confirms with us that they are sticking with Unreal Engine 4 for the game. We've been using Unreal Engine 4, but we've made a lot of modifications to fit our needs, says Hamaguchi. It's more beneficial to have something we're already familiar with and have customized to fit our needs. Another aspect of modern gaming, I mean, yeah, it would add a whole, like, to move the whole thing, to port the whole thing, the whole project to Unreal Engine 5, while it might make it prettier and it might streamline their work in the long run, it would add so much time to their development cycle. And we're already complaining that it's taking a long time as it is. So I think this is a good decision by from Hamaguchi's end. And yeah, I agree. It would take a lot of time to do that. So good decision in the long run. Another aspect of modern game development that has become widely discussed is generative AI. See, generative AI, that's tricky because, you know, we're hearing that so many people in the game industry are losing their jobs to generative AI. So whenever a developer, it's easy for, like, game journalists will always ask about generative AI because a lot of publishers are coming out. They're saying we don't need people anymore because we're using AI in their space, and there's Can I say evil? There's even companies hiring people to train AI so that they can eventually replace them. So this is always a tricky question for a developer to be asked this, to, like, essentially they're asking them, are you training AI or are you using AI to eventually replace the people you're working with? It's always, you have to walk on eggshells because AI is a tool, right? Which, if you use it properly, it can help you. It can be very beneficial, but on the other end, it can also lead to, like, dangerous outcomes. So let's see what he says. In a previous interview, Hamaguchi stated that Square Enix didn't have any set down rules regarding the technology. However, in between that interview being conducted and published, Square Enix released a financial report that did lay out some of the ways it planned to utilize the technology, partnering with the Matsuo Laboratory at the University of Tokyo with the goal of using Gen AI to automate 70% of QA and debugging tasks in game development by the end of 2027. See, while that sounds very streamlined, while that sounds incredibly useful on the one hand, on the other end, it sounds like, well, what are you using right now to automate that QA and those debugging tasks? Are you using people? Because if you're using people, what's going to happen to those people when you start using Gen AI for that 70%, to automate that 70%, to do those debugging tasks, right? Who's doing those debugging tasks? They're not being done on their own. My stance hasn't, let's see what Hamaguchi says. My stance hasn't changed on depending on AI to produce something or to create something, says Hamaguchi. I don't rely on AI to come up with ideas and things like that. That said, AI is a tool that I and other colleagues would utilize so that our tasks would become much smoother or some of the menial tasks are taken care of by AI. I think it's becoming more and more necessary. I think the purpose of utilizing these tools is so that creators will have a better environment so that they can work more efficiently and they can explore more creative options. See, that's how you use AI. I agree with this. Hamaguchi proceeds to address the automation of the QA process with generative AI. Some of the quality control testing requires very menial tasks like collision check, says Hamaguchi. It's a tedious task that's very repetitive. By automating that using AI, we reduce the stress on the human that is required to check on it. It would just flag an alert and then the developers would get that information, and so we're hoping that that would lower the bandwidth that is required of our people. Okay, what I understand you looking at this is that, yes, that's how you use AI. It's like if you have something to do and it's repetitive and it's like over and over and menial and like boring and stressful as well, and you have a deadline to do it, if you could pass it over to AI and AI can do it for you, then fine. No one says anything. The AI does it. You get the results. All cool. There's no harm done. But on the other end, if there's one person that's only getting paid to do those menial tasks, and he brushes off all those tasks to AI, and then the company steps in and says, you know what, the AI does it just fine. We don't need you here. Go home. Leave the company. And then that person needed that paycheck to support their family, then that's when AI becomes harmful. That's when that line is crossed. That's when AI becomes a bad thing, because you need it to support you. You don't need it to replace you. If you're being replaced by the AI, because if the AI does that menial and repetitive task that you used to do, and then the AI steps in and does it for you to the point where the company doesn't even need you anymore, then that's the bad thing. And that's what we're seeing. Those are the things we're seeing. And to the point that it does it even better than you. You know, it might get to the point where the AI does it even better than the actual person, you know. So that's what we're seeing, and that's what we're seeing a lot of. And that's why a lot of people are complaining that AI is terrible. AI is the worst thing ever. Who created this, you know? And I'm not even talking about the flood of AI content that's filling up our social media. That's a whole other thing. I'm just talking about the work environment, right? The impact of AI in our work environment. Anyway, let's go back to the game because this is becoming a little heavy. 2025 marked the 10-year anniversary since the start of development on this trilogy of titles. Ahead of the series' conclusion, we ask Hamaguchi whether the team is eager to move on or it's savouring its final moments, potentially years. Don't let it be years. With Final Fantasy VII. That's a good question, and also a very difficult question to answer, says Hamaguchi. We want to see it through, and we want to meet, if not surpass, fan expectations with the final installment. But it would be a lie to say that I haven't thought, oh no, there's still more I have to get through, especially when transitioning from the first to the second game. But now that we are seeing the conclusion of the trilogy, there's no wavering. We are focused and want to see it through. So they're giving it their all. They're giving it their all because they can see the end to the horizon. Because, you know, it does get repetitive. Even if, and I have mentioned this on previous streams, that repetition kills passion. If you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, day after day after day, and you're seeing no end in sight, you're like, I have to do this for the rest of my life. Like, it's your work, right? It's your job. And when something is your job, you have to do it. You know you're going to have to do it for the rest of your life. You're tied to it. It's like you're married to it. So that sort of kills any sort of enthusiasm you have for it. It just drains you from your energy, no matter how much you love it, you know? So that's what I imagine is happening here with some of these developers. They might be like, okay, they started off the project being all like, oh my God, Final Fantasy VII, I can't believe I get to work on this project. But now, after 6 years later, some of them must be like, I have to go back in and keep working on this stuff, like, you know, designing the trees or the grass or the little people, the little NPCs who no one's going to care about. Why do I have to do? I don't want to do this anymore. And, you know, that's how that repetition. But now that the third game's coming out, and they're like, okay, good, I'll do this one last time, and then I'll move on to something else. I'll do something different with my life. You know, I'll go create a Balatro or something. But anyway, interesting interview. it was a bit of a general interview, you know. They started talking about AI and random stuff. My main take from this interview was that they've locked in the name of part 3, which hopefully we get very soon, because I'm getting tired of calling it part 3. Let's see what Polygon. Ooh, now Polygon has the headline. This is the headline: Queen's Blood will be enhanced and powered up in Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3. That's the headline. These are the big titles. Director Naoki Hamaguchi says that Rebirth's hit card game will be powered up in Part 3. Good work. I don't know who got this interview, but good work. You got the headline. This is good journalism. We don't know much about the still mysterious final chapter of Square Enix's Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy, but director Naoki Hamaguchi shed more light on what players can expect from the in-development RPG. In an interview with Polygon, Hamaguchi confirmed that the sequel will still have an emphasis on minigames, reaffirming that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's popular Queen's Blood will return in the trilogy's third installment, and teasing how the team is approaching the original Final Fantasy VII's famous snowboard. Oh, give me the snowboarding. Give me the snowboarding. Hook it to my veins. Oh, wow. So we're getting more minigames. We are getting more minigames. This is cool. This is cool. This is getting me psyched. Like, I loved, and I know a lot of other people really enjoyed the Queen's Blood game, and they took that feedback, and now they're building on it. So it just makes me wonder what they're going to do with Queen's Blood. All right, let's read more of this. Polygon spoke with Hamaguchi at Nintendo's New York City store to discuss the release of Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate on Nintendo Switch 2 and Xbox Series X. It's good of them to mention Xbox Series X, because if we check this interview, GameSpot, I think they did a bit of shoddy work, because they just say, Hamaguchi's in New York City to promote the release of Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate on the Nintendo Switch 2. They just said Nintendo Switch 2. Now, I don't know if that's because he was at the Nintendo store, but still, it's coming out on both consoles. Like, they forgot to mention Xbox. This is better. This is better. New York City store, Nintendo's New York City store, he was there for the Nintendo Switch 2, but it's also coming out on Xbox Series X. So that was a bit of a, from GameSpot's point of view, that was a bit of an omission. I'm speaking as a journalist right now. You know, you need to cover everything, because if I was an Xbox representative, I would give them a call. I would give them an email telling them, hey, buddy, you know, you wrote that interview, but it also came out on Xbox, so I'd like you to add that line in. And if I was the person who did the interview, I'd be like, oh boy, yeah, my bad. And that hits your reputation. Who are you? Tom Caswell? Yeah. Speaking about how development is progressing on the remake trilogy's currently unnamed next game, please name it. Hamaguchi expanded on the previous confirmation that Queen's Blood, a fan favorite minigame in which players collect cards and build decks for use in tactical grid battles, will return for the third part. Queen's Blood is a very popular and beloved minigame, and I believe a lot of people are still wanting something like that. Yes, we are. You better believe we are. Hamaguchi told Polygon, I want to expand on Queen's Blood so that we are enhancing it and giving you a more powered-up version of it when you see that third installment. Queen's Blood is still going to be available in the third installment. We just want to expand on it. So maybe I'm thinking instead of 3 grids, maybe 5 grids, maybe a bigger grid. More decks, of course. Cards affect each other in different ways. More strategy, you know, and eventually a way that we can take Queen's Blood outside of Final Fantasy VII Remake, whatever. A way that it can become a game of its own, you know, like Gwent. A way that they can, and of course they're thinking of it in a marketing sort of perspective. I'm sure they're thinking of it that way as well, that they can turn it into an app, maybe, or a trading card of its own. Like we've seen how popular Magic the Gathering is. Maybe not the Final Fantasy trading card game, but, you know, something like that. Something that you could take it out of the game, turn it into something of its own. Because people actually asked. There were people asking, like, can we play Queen's Blood? Are you thinking, there were questions at interviews. Are you planning on doing something with Queen's Blood? And of course, naturally, the people at Square Enix, they probably took that and they're like, okay, we want you to do more with this. You're going to do more with this. So, like they did with G-Bike, they turned that into an app, an independent game of its own. I think it was a mobile game, because they thought, the Escape from Midgar section was really popular with players. So let's try and turn that into a thing of its own. I'm sure we're going to get a Queen's Blood app. I'd give it a 85 to 90%. Aside from Queen's Blood, Hamaguchi stressed that minigames will still be a big part of the third installment. Yes! A lot of people complained that Rebirth was chock full of minigames. But honestly, that's part of the charm of Final Fantasy VII. I don't know how you can talk about Final Fantasy VII without talking about minigames. The game was drenched. It was chock full of minigames. Like, you had... And that's why they created them, right? That's why they put them into Rebirth. Because you couldn't play Final Fantasy VII without playing the Chocobo minigame that got you Knights of the Round. The best materia in the game. The most OP materia in the game. What other minigames? The basketball minigame, just randomly popping up in my game. The snowboarding minigame. The CPR minigame when you were trying to breathe air into the little girl. So many minigames. The Moogle minigame, the boxing minigame, and honestly, I am glad they brought them back. I am so happy they brought back those minigames and even more of them, because it gives you variety. There are so many games these days where you play them and you can only do one thing, right? You can only do this thing. And you can do that thing until the end of the game. And it's like, okay, this thing I'm doing is fun. I'm having fun with this. But, I want to do other things as well while I'm playing this game. And Final Fantasy VII gives that to you. It gives you that variety. It gives you that break from the main story. It gives you that ability to not keep doing the same things over and over and over again, And that's what I love about it. That's what's so interesting about it. Not just Final Fantasy VII, but like 8, 9, 10, all these games. And that's when people started to complain after 10 that games would become a little bit dull, that there was no open world, there were no mini games. Like, where has the essence of Final Fantasy VII gone? Because we love this variety, right? And then Rebirth, and then people got so used to Final Fantasy games becoming so linear that when Rebirth came out, people were complaining that there's too much to do. There's too much content. And I'm like, you don't actually have to do that content, But it's just that people chase after platinum trophies these days. They get addicted and they think that you're not actually a real gamer if you don't get the platinum trophies. So they're like, why did Square Enix put all these mini games in the game and block us from getting the platinum trophy? It's like, mate, don't play the mini games. Enjoy the main story. Just go from A to Z without branching out and avoid all the mini games. They're optional. That's what I'm trying to say here. The mini games are optional. They're not something you are forced to do. Or maybe you can dip your toe in, do the frog mini game, play it once, and then never play it again. Or the dolphin minigame, jump up, get to Upper Junon, and then don't ever see that dolphin again. Snowboarding. Oh, no, hang on. We jumped a bit. That includes doing justice to the original Final Fantasy VII snowboarding minigame, which occurs after the events covered in Rebirth. In the original version, players have to guide Cloud to the Great Glacier in a downhill snowboarding minigame where he must dodge snowmen and trees. Snowboarding. This is something that fans have really deep memories about. Yep. Oh, you better believe it. I was never good at this game, to be honest, because I felt that the controls were too stiff. I couldn't turn. It was really hard to turn. And at that time, I was also playing Mario Kart, so I was used to those controls. And when I was trying to move Cloud, it was just like, dude, turn, pivot. I'm afraid I can't delve too much into the details, but we understand that it's not going to be just a simple snowboarding minigame. Of course not. We want to make sure that it's incorporated into the story to have that sort of connection with the theming of it. Oh, wow. I can just imagine, right? You're snowboarding, you're probably trying to get away from Shinra or something like that, but it's also like, I don't know. emotionally driven because you're still reeling from the loss of Aerith. Ah, but maybe Cloud hasn't got that realization yet, and I don't want to dive too deep into it, but this has just got my mind on overdrive. You know, just thinking about all the possible scenarios. It's got me thinking about that section at Desert Prison in Rebirth after, you know, the events with Dyne and all that, when you're driving and Barrett's shooting back at Palmer and the Turks. Something like that. Something like that. But this time it'll just be Cloud on the snowboard. Maybe they'll take elements from the bike minigame as well. And you'll be maybe finding some soldiers. I am thinking that Shinra will be involved in this somehow. I hope maybe not too much, because remember in the original game, there were no Shinra troops around. It was just Cloud going down the mountain. So, yeah. I hope they don't change it too dramatically, the whole scene, right? Because remember, it was just the group. Like, what's her name? Scarlet chased them out of the icicle in town, but other than that, they weren't really being chased by Shinra. It's just because Shinra came into the town that Cloud and the rest of the group felt like, okay, we better get out of here. But they didn't actually spot them. They didn't see them there. And then Cloud started snowboarding down the mountain and smash his face. Okay, yeah, you do not remember that. While Hamaguchi didn't spill any more details about the next game, he did provide Polygon with an update about how far along its development cycle is. The project might be further along than fans are expecting, yes, considering that Rebirth launched on PlayStation 5 just 2 years ago. In terms of the third installment, I believe we are coming along very smoothly, Hamaguchi. Well, I mean, he's not going to tell you that the game is further back. We have set a schedule for ourselves, and I believe we are tracking on time for the milestones we have set. So I'm really thankful for the development team, and I have so much respect for them working on this project. I believe that at this point the game is playable, technically, but we are still trying to polish it so it is at a quality where we can deliver it to our players. Nice. Nice. Okay, so we know that they started working on this before Rebirth even came out, so it's probably been in the oven for a good... maybe if they started working on this in 2023, late 2023, close to 3 years, I'd say that's good enough for any game. I say that that's a long enough time for any game. And yeah. And I think we're still on track to hit that 2027 release date. Because, you know, those developers, like, they probably worked on the assets for Rebirth. They gave them to the publishing staff or whoever needed them, and then they were like, okay, well, I'm going to keep working. I'm going to continue to work. But you can... They just kept working through to the next game. They've still been working. Maybe they're already done, you know. Maybe the development team, they're done, and now it's just, you know, Q&A, like he says, Q&A testing, polishing and all that, and fixing up, like, trial and error. So, yeah. So, or voice acting. I don't know. I feel like it might be in late development stages. So now we're just waiting to get the reveals and to start the promotion. I'm thinking promotion, they might start promoting this game heavily from late 2026, and we might actually get it by, you know, as we've been hoping for, January 31st, 2027, which is the 30th anniversary from the release date of the original Final Fantasy VII in Japan, and that would close a perfect cycle. Like 30 years Final Fantasy VII. That would be the perfect send-off to this game, to this franchise, to this whole thing. I don't know. That's all the news we got from Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, what you think about this, what else is going on. And yeah, stay on this channel for more gaming content. I'm Shadowhunter867, and I'll see you later. See you, everyone.